The wolf greedily devours its lunch, gnawing at the prey's skeleton. At such a moment, the greedy predator is particularly aggressive, as it will attack anyone it even suspects of intending to take its food. But the Wolverine couldn't care less about the wolf's mood or just how tough it is. The small predator spotted the prey and goes for a head-on attack to take it away from the enemy competitor. The wolf decided to push back and attacked the Wolverine. Well, it's his fault. It seems that a much larger predator could easily tear apart the intruder, but the Wolverine is not the opponent to fight one-on-one. It meets its opponent with fierce and powerful strikes. Each leap of the Wolverine towards the target is accompanied by either a bite or a blow of its clawed paws, and the aggressiveness of the attacker's strikes clearly surprises the wolf. And all thanks to the fact that the Wolverine turns into a living projectile and puts all the weight of its body into each blow. The wolf is attentive and agile, so it manages to catch the Wolverine several times and sink its teeth into it. And you know what? It doesn't matter to the Wolverine. The wolf is shocked, but the enemy's high pain threshold allows it to ignore the wolf's bites. Moreover, the Wolverine makes the wolf regret each of its attacks, using them as a way to get close to the enemy and deliver an especially painful blow. It seems that the Wolverine has already forgotten about the meat and is caught up in the fight. It wants not so much to have lunch with someone else's prey as to beat up this great predator. And today we will show you other cases in which animals have picked the wrong opponents. Nature researchers have long observed a pattern according to which the larger warm-blooded animals are, the colder their habitat is. Therefore, among all subspecies of wolves, it is the polar predators that inhabit the tundra that are the mightiest, largest, and most powerful. At the same time, they have to compete fiercely for food in hunting grounds. A unique case of such competition was captured by the camera lens. Here, the mature and experienced female wolf is transferring her recently born pups from one den to another. She is surrounded by family members. Externally, it seems like the wolves are of the same size and, consequently, the same age, but that's not the case. The experienced female with the pups in her jaws is the only seasoned predator in the frame. The other young wolves are already excellent hunters, but they yield to her much like a boxer who has been training for a couple of years yields to the world of champion. It's not worth tangling with the young athlete, but comparing him to the champion is just funny. It's the same thing here. At the same time the mature female has arranged her den, although it is on the territory of the native pack, it is still isolated from the other adult members of the family. She defends her personal space. Only when the newly born wolf pups open their eyes, can confidently walk and eat the meat brought by their mother, she will fully return to the pack so that the whole clan helps raise the family's additions. The adult male, the female wolf's partner, seems to be out hunting. While the female is arranging the new den, he is providing food for the entire family. And this is what the intruder decided to take advantage of. He understands that the mature female is focused on protecting the pups, and the young wolves are inferior to him in experience and ferocity. Therefore, the intruder fiercely attacks the family and tries to take one of the dens for himself. At the same time, he poses a real threat to the wolf pups. The intruder hopes that this will make the wolf family retreat in fear for the defenseless pups. But this intruder doesn't know who he's dealing with. The young wolves, although inferior to him in ferocity, remain powerful and brave predators. They distract the intruder, and an impressive maneuvering battle ensues. This gives the female wolf time to secure the pups and gather them in one place. The intruder breaks free from the young individual's encirclement, rushes into an empty den, and tries to organize his defense in there. But the seasoned female, furious at the intrusion, is not going to leave the dangerous intruder alone. She jumps into battle and fearlessly sinks her long fangs into the enemy's flesh. Underestimating her was a mistake. Although digging out a wolf from its den is quite difficult, with the support of the young individuals who dig the walls of the burrow, the female managed to grab the enemy by the paw and brutally pull him out of the shelter. The intruder took a serious beating. He aggressively snarls and tries to attack the young wolves, who wisely retreat. But it's evident that this intruder is outnumbered. The female and her young helpers don't want to risk themselves in vain. They understand that if they try to overpower the lone wolf, he will likely manage to injure at least one of them. But the intruder also realizes that he can't stay here. Injured and beaten, he finally retreats. He picked the wrong opponents to challenge their territory and paid a brutal price for it. The pups were unharmed, and the family defended them as well as their living space. You've got to agree, such a combination of bravery, strength, and intelligence commands your respect, doesn't it? The polar bear is the largest, most massive, and strongest terrestrial predator among all contemporary animals. They surpass lions by about twice their size, and that's just the average number. The dimensions of polar bears vary significantly depending on their habitat and living conditions. If the average weight of the predator is usually just under half a ton, then in exceptional cases, individual specimens can be almost twice as large. Such a monster can stand on its hind legs, towering over a human like a living rock. One swipe of a bear's paw can break a horse's or deer's spine. Moreover, polar bears not only possess monstrous strength, which helps them hunt over other animals, but also formidable weapons. Long, sharp claws and powerful jaws with a set of fangs provide immense attacking potential. And the bear's protection comes from its thick layer of fat and dense fur. The difference between these opponents is about 10 or 20%. In human terms, that's quite a lot. You've got to agree, if a heavyweight boxer and a middleweight boxer were to enter the ring, few would bet on the lighter boxer. But the larger bear clearly underestimated the skill of his enemy here. A fierce exchange of blows ensues. The opponents stand on their hind legs and fiercely batter each other, trying to tear each other's fur with their claws, sinking their fangs into each other, grappling and overcoming pain. Although the large bear acted actively and aggressively, it couldn't knock the opponent down, suppress his resistance, or engage in ground fighting. There, the giant would have had an undeniable advantage, and the smaller bear understands this. It deliberately tries to keep a moderate distance. Notice here that the bear with the more intact fur retreats more often. His opponent presses him, although his beautiful white fur is already covered in red spots. Why? It's the cunning of the retreating one. He prolongs the fight, imposes his conditions, and demonstrates genuine weakness to spring a painful surprise on the enemy during the next clash with another devastating blow. Engrossed in the attack, the wounded bear momentarily forgets about pain and falls into the trap of the opponent. And the latter dictates his fighting style, which is the safest for the smaller predator. No wrestling, only sweeping blows and fierce sudden bites. After several minutes of tense and epic confrontation, the condition of the opponent's fur reveals the outcome of the duel. It turns out that the massive bear received far more serious wounds than its smaller opponent. Numerous wounds not only cause him pain, but also deprive him of maneuverability and strength. The huge bear acted too recklessly, whereas the blows of his enemy were much more precise and dangerous. He got a little roughed up as well, but he's doing quite well. The smaller predator still didn't dare to finish off the enemy. In desperation, the massive bear will act especially cruelly. Why risk it again? The outcome of the battle is obvious. Wounded and battered, the larger bear retreats. He's alive, but such injuries are very dangerous for a predator. It will be difficult for him to hunt, and now he faces hunger. This is the price of his mistake in assessing the opponent's strength. Polar bears are among the most dangerous and effective predators in the Arctic region. Here, a hunter discovers a walrus haul-out. These are heavyweights in the pinniped world, reaching weights of about a ton or even more. Cold protection comes from a very thick layer of subcutaneous fat and dense skin. These features also give them decent protection, but not against a bear. The walruses are shocked by the appearance of the predator. They were sorting out disputes among themselves. Males competed for females, each individual trying to carve out more space on the limited area of comfortable land. The walruses should have been more cautious. The bear manages to catch them off guard with its unexpected appearance and fierce attacks. For him, such a quantity of pinnipeds is a real stroke of luck. With joy and anticipation of a hearty meal, he lunges alone at the whole group of walruses. The walruses panic, and then they try to retreat. They crowd, collide, and hinder each other, which only makes the bear's task easier. He boldly approaches them, delivering blows, scratching with huge claws, and sinking his teeth into its thick skin. For the polar bear, it's like a trip to the supermarket. He's not afraid of resistance at all, as he senses the prey's panic. The predator impresses with his swiftness and indeed manages to seriously injure several young individuals who also suffer from the crash. Finally, the bear selects the most appetizing specimen, settling on a young female. The predator drags the helpless victim away from the main group of walruses, most of whom have already managed to flee into the water. Suddenly, one of the males remembered that he was armed with impressively huge tusks. When the bear loomed over the walrus female to finish her off, the male, in the last moment, saved the female and delivered a powerful tusk blow right into the predator's back. The bear flinched in pain. He's shocked because he didn't expect such a sudden and effective resistance. The predator turned towards the walrus male, but he kept pressing, threatening with his huge tusks. Their length may exceed the length of your forearm. No matter how powerful and dangerous the bear was, he didn't want to feel another blow from this weapon. In the end, the predator retreated. The walrus male's courage, which saved the female at the last moment before execution, deserves your like, I would say, doesn't it? Let's hope that the chivalrous behavior of the walrus will be noticed by its kin, especially the female he saved. There are several species of penguins, and the difference between them is quite significant. Yes, most of these birds lead a similar lifestyle. They are excellent swimmers but cannot fly, inhabiting the harshest conditions of the southern polar regions. But at the same time, they can vary greatly in size. Emperor penguin chicks are more than twice as large as adult Adelaide penguins. Considering that the latter generally look awkward and clumsy with their almost fish-like eyes, it's not surprising that the cheeky young individuals of the larger species can show aggression towards distant relatives. But messing with Adelaide penguins is really not a good idea. Yes, they're small and look a bit strange, but they're also fearless and truly cool birds. When this chick decided to pick on an adult Adelaide, he didn't realize that he was in for a scolding. He thought that he could have some fun at the expense of the smaller feathered creature. But the Adelaide immediately made it clear that the only one having fun now would be him. It should be noted that this is one of the funniest clashes we put together in this collection. Penguins are extremely agile in the water, but on land, assuming a vertical position, they can move pretty slowly. And their wing strikes, which resemble fins and serve exactly that purpose, evoke laughter rather than fear. But not for this chick. For him, it's a painful but important lesson. The Adelaide penguin dominates over an opponent twice its size, but far less agile and fast. That's what effective and stylish self-defense looks like, people. If the chick's parents didn't teach him manners, an adult of another species will. Although his blows cannot inflict fatal damage on a larger opponent, constant slaps, stunning impact into the gaze of those empty eyes caused the Emperor Penguin chick genuine to panic. And you know what? We understand him. This cute little feathered fighter turned out to be much cooler than one might have expected. And the funniest and coolest thing here is that he got so angry that he even picked on an adult emperor penguin. They differ from chicks not so much in size as in the color of their plumage and, of course, experience. But the Adelaide wins again this time. He puts his beak into action and shows that it wasn't wise to mess with him. Now the emperor penguins will keep their chicks in check to avoid getting a good scolding themselves. Being unparalleled fish hunters, penguins themselves become the prey of many predators, among which are not only aquatic ones like sea lions or killer whales, but also other birds. Penguins are especially often attacked by skuas. These distant relatives of ordinary gulls have inherited from the white robbers their audacity and ferocity, being even stronger and larger than them. A mature squaw can attack not only a chick, but also a sufficiently large adult penguin. Here, a sea lion attacks penguins, finding the perfect spot for it. Here, there is a fairly high and sharp line of rocky coast, as well as strong and fast currents, with whirlpools that small creatures constantly have to fight against. Sea lions pounce on their prey with a fury that can easily be compared to the aggression of real African lions from the family of big cats. Thanks to its streamlined body shape, this flippered predator is capable of catching up with a penguin at short distances. Of course, the bird wins in terms of maneuverability, but the flexible sea lion can grab the enemy by bending at an amazing angle. The jaws of the sea lion possess crushing force, especially since they can accommodate about half of a penguin's body. However, the flippered hunter has relatively short teeth, so it rarely inflicts fatal injuries with one bite. The hunt looks even more brutal and harsh. To finish off the penguin, the sea lion bursts out of the water with its prey up to chest level and then begins to vigorously shake its head. The teeth sink in even deeper, tearing the skin and reaching the internal organs. Sometimes this can go on for quite a while. No, the sea lion does not torment the penguin, but considering the bird's thick skin and its layer of fat, the sea lion can only reach the internal organs of its prey with its short, sharp teeth in this specific way. Sometimes the penguin even manages to escape, and then it finds itself on land relatively safe, albeit seriously injured. It looks terrible and indeed evokes sympathy for the bird. But there is a significant chance that the sea lion's bite only damaged the skin and muscle tissue of the penguin. Perhaps this resilient and brave bird will survive even after such injuries. So sea lions try to rely not only on superiority in strength and speed, but also on tactical advantage. In the whirlpool of waves at the edge of the shore, the water seems to boil, and aggressive, determined sea lions pounce on the penguins one after another. Their plan is quite simple and effective. To get onto land, a penguin literally needs to leap out of the water, which requires concentration, effort, and time. Sea lions attempt to intercept the prey at a crucial moment. Sometimes the predators succeed, and then another flippered hunter tears the prey apart right in the water. But many penguins avoid the fatal bite and end up on land. There, the flippered animal is still dangerous, but most of the maneuverability of this terrifying beast evaporates. The sea lion clearly considers itself the coolest predator around. A wounded penguin is nearby. It takes a little effort to catch the prey. It will take some time, but lunch is already close by. When suddenly, a squaw swoops down from the sky. In the best traditions of gulls, it steals the prey right under the nose of the sea lion, which has just caught, wounded, and trapped the penguin. The squad drags this penguin away from the predator, covering it with its wings, and together with its kin who have arrived for the feast, finish it off. The sea lion is shocked. These robbers start eating their meal right in front of him. Perhaps in a fight against it, the penguins are helpless, but birds shouldn't have been underestimated. This huge sea lion found itself on land and decided to show the local fauna that it's the toughest one around. The dogs are shocked. They didn't expect such aggression from this guest from the watery depths. Well, at least nobody got hurt. But admit it, this giant's sense of humor is quite specific. Apparently here the dog decided to settle scores and show the flippered ones where they belong. Several marine mammals were resting on the narrow pier at once. They enjoyed being in this convenient spot where they could bask in the sun before their next swim. But the dog doesn't like these cheeky guests. It rushes alone against a whole gang of sea lions, each of which surpasses the dog in size. But this doesn't even look like a fight. The dog approaches the opponents cautiously, but they each manage to dive into the safe depths in turn. It looks pretty funny how these marine predators, without attempting to resist, instantly retreat from the assertive but not so threatening dog. They just didn't know who they were messing with. Of course, on land, sea lions do lose much of their amazing agility. But this doesn't mean that they become helpless. Besides, much depends on the species. For example, the hind limbs of seals are directly backward, so these mammals are indeed quite clumsy on land. They can only rely on their front flippers, crawling at a slow speed and lacking the ability to chase or pursue prey. Sea lions, on the other hand, are different. They can tuck their hind limbs under themselves, standing fully on all fours on the ground. Certainly, the flippers complicate movement, slow down running, and restrict movement, but a sea lion can run quite swiftly for a while even in such a position. It might seem that it moves awkwardly even in this case. Well, this penguin also thought so, and paid for it with its mistake with its life. When the bird noticed that a sea lion was approaching, instead of panicking and fleeing, it decided to show its contempt for the opponent. The penguin could have easily escaped from the seal, but underestimating the sea lion would have been a mistake. It can push off from the ground and with one leap instantly shorten the distance between itself and the audacious bird. The penguin didn't expect that. The sea lion loomed over the opponent and swiftly grabbed the penguin by its back with its jaws. The predator started shaking the bird's body, lifting it above its head. It looks epic. The fate of the penguin evokes sympathy, but still, the outcome of this confrontation is quite predictable. The sea lion carried its prey to a corner, isolated from the open sand by vegetation. There, the sea lion forcefully threw the penguin onto the ground. The bird was seriously wounded after the sea lion's bite to its back, but this blow crippled and stunned the bird. After some time, we see the sea lion carrying its prey towards the open water. The flippered animal finishes off its opponent by breaking its neck. For other penguins, this is a frightening but important lesson. It's not worth tangling with sea lions, not only in the water, but also on land. In the forest, a camera trap was set up that automatically takes a series of shots. Coyotes are often underestimated. They're seen as too small to pose a real threat to large ungulates. Coyotes are considered common predators that attack livestock, hunt rabbits and hares, but never really come face to face with a formidable opponent. It's like a not-so-successful demo version of a wolf. But that's not the case here at all. While coyotes may not be particularly large and usually even smaller than a German Shepherd, underestimating this wild predator would definitely be a mistake. Here you see how an adult, experienced deer, armed with its branching, sharp, and powerful antlers, made this mistake and then paid for it. coyotes attack lightning fast, striking, sinking their fangs into the target, tearing the flesh of the enemy, and then immediately retreating. And this cunning tactic is designed to bleed the prey, make it tire prematurely, and hinder it from acting decisively when it finally decides to do so. The deer should have immediately counterattacked or fled. If it had immediately fought back and rammed the coyote with its antlers, it would have surely dealt with one of the attackers, driving off the other. And if the deer had started retreating and immediately ran away at the first appearance of the enemy, it most likely would have been able to escape as well. Instead, the deer hesitated, assuming that the small hunters simply wouldn't dare to attack it. The deer was wrong. The sudden, vicious attack led to the deer's hind legs being injured. It lost its mobility and could no longer flee from the resilient predators. And although the deer had enough strength to stand up once more and to make a heroic effort for a counterattack, the hoofed animal really couldn't save itself here. The coyotes harassed the deer, not allowing it to recover or retreat. At the same time, the predators act cunningly, but not cowardly, and they don't retreat, only maneuvering to repeatedly pester the victim with attacks. They risk receiving a fatal blow from the antlers, but still they go into battle. And their determination, cunning, and unexpected boldness bear fruit. Just the two coyotes managed to bring down a deer armed not only with antlers, but also outweighing both of them in terms of mass and brute strength combined. Two wolves made a huge mistake when they decided to attack this Wolverine. Each of the wolves is roughly 3 times bulkier than the enemy, and together these predators can take down even a large noble deer or a young moose. However, the Wolverine remains one of the most notorious tough guys in the animal kingdom and is rightly considered an animal berserker. It was enough just to glance at it sideways for the aggressive and furious beast to leap into an attack on the wolves themselves. The larger predators were shocked, as they did not expect such a turn of events, but they quickly assessed the situation and began to maneuver. The wolf's plan is to attack the Wolverine from 2 opposite sides, seize it with powerful jaws, and to literally tear it apart. They are not willing to sustain injuries, so they behave cautiously, and often dodge the Wolverine's counterattacks and strikes themselves. However, they clearly underestimated not only the fury, but also the strength of the opponent. Despite not being as large as the Wolverine has its important advantages. A high pain threshold and a very dense, tough skin provide a high level of protection and allow it to ignore some light attacks. The Wolverine's legs are muscular and very massive, and large pads prevent it from sinking into the snow. The Wolverine's claws and teeth are very powerful, and the beast uses its arsenal extremely cruelly. The Wolverine itself is not afraid of pain, but tries to inflict maximum suffering on the predators who dare to attack it. However, despite all its fury, the Wolverine is not a mindless beast. It is smart and cunning. Having deciphered the wolves' plan, the Wolverine instantly finds a way to counter it. As soon as the predators try to surround the opponent and approach from different sides simultaneously, the Wolverine immediately either lunges aside or attacks one of the attackers to break free from the encirclement. Even enduring and persistent wolves soon realize that they've tangled with the wrong opponent. In close combat, the Wolverine is capable of giving them a run for their money, delivering precise and powerful strikes, tossing the enemy aside, and scratching or biting them. They'll have to retreat if they don't want the enraged Wolverine to maul them. And today we will show you other cases where animals clearly picked the wrong opponent and regretted it. The tiger is a true master of ambushes, but when it tried to sneak up on the leopard, it clearly didn't know who it was dealing with. While the spotted panther may concede to its striped distant relative in strength and size, it's a true ninja among all predators. The leopard deciphered the opponent's trickery and immediately darted into hiding. The spotted cat leaps right to the top of the tree. The tiger tried to climb up there as well. It also has retractable claws and muscular paws. but its massive bulk still doesn't allow the tiger to climb as high. It has to jump down. The leopard is safe because it didn't disregard the threat and climbed really high as soon as it spotted the enemy. But the tiger shouldn't have underestimated its opponents. Some episodes of unexpected animal behavior really resemble comedy more than action. For example, in this case right here. The dog wags its tail and clearly isn't expecting an attack, yet it's wary of the huge lion, who behaves like a true gentleman. Did he just kiss the dog's paw? Good day, madam. You look splendid. If it weren't for the fur, we'd surely see that the dog blushed with embarrassment. The lynx attacked a deer, which clearly didn't know who it was dealing with. The hoofed animal skillfully kicked the predator and threw the ferocious cat aside with one blow. The deer demonstrated that there's too much of a size difference between them for the predator to count on success. But the lynx disagrees. It pounces on the deer right on its head and starts spinning furiously, jerking and fiercely tearing the flesh of its prey with its teeth and claws. The deer clearly didn't expect such an onslaught, but the lynx is incredibly agile and fast. In terms of size, it really lags behind the opponent, and the entire body of the cat is like the head and neck of the deer. It's just that the fierce and bold predator uses its size as an advantage. The deer can't counterattack because it can't reach the lynx with its hooves. Butting won't work either because the cat is literally stuck to the herbivore's head. Escaping with such a burden won't be possible. A little more, and the lynx will simply break the deer's neck. It wears out the opponent to then find major vessels and sever them, or simply strangle the weakened enemy. The deer shouldn't have underestimated the small but fierce and strong predatory cat. And today we'll show you other cases where animals clearly miscalculated their opponent and paid dearly for it. How do you feel about wasps? If they evoke fear in you, then we totally understand that. These predatory insects with venomous stings are quite aggressive and can often cause trouble even for mammals, especially when they gather in large groups. But here, the wasps didn't know who they were dealing with. They were just having lunch when an uninvited guest showed up at the party. This was a hornet. If you rarely encounter different types of venomous insects, it seems that the difference between them isn't that great. Indeed, are wasps really that different from hornets? Similar body structure, coloration, aggressive behavior of the arthropod predator makes them similar. But in reality, the difference between them is huge, especially when it comes to certain species. Wasps don't understand how dangerous the enemy they're dealing with is. The hornet is several times larger than a single wasp. And although it came here without the support of its kin, the giant immediately scattered the swarm of opponents. It deterred some wasps, launched short attacks, took off for aerial duels with one or two wasps at once. When most of the swarm left the area, the hornet pounced on a single wasp, easily and quickly subdued its resistance, grabbed it, and finished off the opponent with its jaws. There are giant hornets that can grow as long as your index finger. Pretty cool, right? But size is just one of the reasons why these hornets are among the most dangerous insects on the planet. This has to do with their aggression. The enormous strength and venom of this predator, combined with its astonishing bloodthirstiness, make these hornets incredibly dangerous. An impressive case of a real battle between a group of hornets and a beehive was captured on the researcher's camera lens. The bees are much smaller than the opponent, but there can be hundreds or even thousands of them against dozens of aggressors. However, hornets win due to their tactics. It all starts with a scout who finds the hive, then returns to its kind and brings reinforcements. A complex and intense struggle ensues. The main weapon of the bee is its jaws. It tries to attack the enemy with them and only uses the sting as a last resort. This sets it apart from wasps and hornets. The bee's sting is one-time use. After the bee plunges it into the flesh of its enemy, it remains there. Through a thin channel, the toxin will be delivered into the sting and pumped into the enemy's body. This is a very effective weapon, especially considering that bees always attack in large groups, using chemical traces of their kin into the thermal trace of the victim for navigation. But the bee cannot survive this attack and regrow a new stinger. The venom reservoir and its delivery mechanism through a special channel take up too much space in the insect's abdomen. If a bee leaves a stinger in its enemy, it essentially disembowels itself. The bee is willing to sacrifice itself for the survival of the hive, but for this, it must accurately hit the target. The hornet does not have this problem. It can sting as much as it needs to. They are simply very strong. With its jaws, the hornet can easily tear apart the bee's exoskeleton, but it won't be able to penetrate through its armor. Additionally, the aggressors also have an advantage in speed and agility. Although huge hornets look like true giants compared to bees, they have incredible agility and maneuverability. They don't allow themselves to be surrounded, avoid traps, fight aggressively and assertively with the enemy, and literally scatter the bees. Despite the huge advantage in strength, the hornet simply ignores the bites of the bee's jaws, then immediately counterattacks and bites off the enemy's head, cuts through the body, or uses its own stinger, which is reusable. The swarm of insects swoops down on the hive, launching a stunning attack, scattering the guards, and then takes up positions at narrow entrances and exits, next to the walls and from other corners, where a dozen bees cannot surround and overwhelm the enemy simultaneously. There they easily deal with 1, 2, or 3 enemies who are forced to attack the aggressor one by one. Hornets are tireless and surprisingly bloodthirsty. They wipe out the advanced guards units of the hive's defenders and then gradually destroy all of the forces directed against them. Bees can do nothing against them. Thanks to their size superiority, hornets not only scatter the enemy, but are also practically invulnerable to the bee's jaws. Bees cannot immobilize the enemy for a sting attack. As a result, hornets simply destroy the entire hive, first dealing with the adult individuals, and then destroying the larvae, for which they came here in the first place. The predators simply ate the new generation of bees, wiping out the entire colony. Moreover, hornets often fight amongst themselves. These impressive battles look particularly brutal when you see one of the aggressors literally biting off the enemy's head. If the jaws of this winged monster can deal with the neck of its own kind, then bees or wasps are no more formidable opponents for them than a sandwich is to you. However, if you think that resisting hornets is impossible, and they can easily wipe out any number of smaller insects, then you're really mistaken here. There is a species of bees that has found a way to resist these enemies. The main thing is to catch the enemy scout. Then it will be possible to intercept and neutralize it before the main gang of aggressors learns about the existence and location of the hive. Alert hive guards are on the lookout and constantly fly or walk around, searching for potential enemies. When the hornet approaches the colony, the bees do not attack it immediately, but let it deeper into the hive. The hornet does not expect such trickery, so it flies inside, making it more difficult for itself to retreat. It is not afraid of bees, it is confident that it can fly away even if it is discovered. It simply scatters the guards and breaks away from the pursuit, but the bees have chosen the perfect place for an ambush and the implementation of their clever tactics. The hornet is in a confined but not narrow space where many bees can fit at once. The hive defenders lure the enemy in there, and then all pounce on it together. They instantly swarm the huge and fearsome opponent, bravely fighting it and immobilizing its wing movements, legs, and even its massive jaws. The hornet tries to defend itself, but everything happens too close. It's neither stung nor bitten. They just swoop in from different sides, grab it, and try to hang out onto the enemy. The scout did not expect this at all. The bees act so quickly that it doesn't manage to deal with any of them at all. However, its exoskeleton is impervious to their jaws. What to do? The bees found a brilliant way out of the situation. They start buzzing loudly and vibrating. Throughout the hive, there is a menacing hum, but the sound is just a side effect of this tactic. In fact, due to the buzzing and the active constant movements of bodies and wings, the ball of bees begins to heat up sharply and very strongly. The temperature rises to such a degree that the hornet suffers a thermal shock and loses the ability to resist. The bees do not stop and literally bake the enemy inside these balls. Interestingly enough, the maximum temperature that a hornet can withstand is only slightly lower than that which bees can endure. The difference is minimal, but it is precisely this high heat resistance of the bees that saves them. The hornet can withstand a temperature that is high and dangerous, but not fatal for the bees. But how did the bees realize that they have this minimal but life-saving advantage? They probably didn't conduct experiments or make precise measurements, yet this tactic works very effectively, practically saving the bee population in Japan. Moreover, in combination with the thermal shock on the hornet, the increased concentration of carbon dioxide also acts toxically, which also occurs inside the cluster. And when it disintegrates, the bees that took part in this impressive battle recover after some time. They are alive, if they avoided the enemy's jaws. Their own tactic, although dangerous for them, did not claim the life of a single fighter. The defeated enemy lies at their feet. Pretty cool, isn't it? And it's also quite amusing that such an amazing and unique way of combating a dangerous enemy was developed by bees in Japan. Apparently, this country truly inspires innovation, now doesn't it? Which of today's cases in which animals demonstrated unexpectedly cool resistance or surprised you with their behavior in any other way impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Then you'll be the first to see the most incredible episodes from the world of wild nature captured by our camera lenses.